City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com. Welcome to City Spotlight. On this program, we have learned about communities from Marshall to Taylorville, Arthur to Effingham, and places in between, from community leaders across Central and East Central Illinois. We've also been able to feature events and places that help shape the towns we have had on City Spotlight. On this episode of City Spotlight, we're going to take an extended look at two places in Effingham, the Effingham County Museum and the Effingham Performance Center. Delaine Donaldson sits down with us at the Effingham County Museum and tells us how the former Effingham County Courthouse has become the home to the rich history of Effingham County. And the Effingham Performance Center has become an entertainment destination, bringing big-name music and entertainment acts to Effingham. We talked with Rich Jorn of the EPC about the EPC's success, some notable acts that have come to the EPC, and the staff of the EPC that helps make every show possible. Hope you enjoyed this episode of City Spotlight on the Effingham County Museum and Effingham Performance Center in Effingham. We're inside now at the former Effingham County Courthouse, now the Effingham County Museum. And to tell us all about it and the history is Delaine Donaldson of the Effingham County Cultural Center and Museum Association.
Correct.
Welcome, Delaine. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Glad I got the title right. Very good.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. Got a lot of questions about the history of this building and what it is now, which is the Effingham County Museum. First off, Delaine, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I understand you're from Effingham.
I am from Effingham. I was born at St. Anthony Hospital back in 1943 during World War II. My dad was in the service at that time, and so I lived on a farm with my mother at her parents' house for a couple of years. Then we moved to Effingham. I've lived here ever since.
All right, so you've seen all the growth through the recent years.
Indeed.
Excellent, very good. All right, so this is the former Effingham County Courthouse. When was the last year it was in operation as the courthouse?
In 2007,
Okay.
It was vacated by the county.
Okay, very good. And now today it is the Effingham County Museum. So let's start with the history of this building, the facility. When did it get here, and why did it get here, and who are maybe some instrumental people that helped it get here?
Okay, I might mention that the very first county seat of Effingham County was a place called Ewington, which today is just a cemetery and nothing more than that. And then right before the Civil War, the county voted to transfer the county seat to Effingham from Ewington. That was because the Illinois Central Railroad had come through by that time. The National Road, which was the very first federal highway, had already been coming through this area. People had been traveling through this area since the 1830s. And so there was this crossroads that was here, and make it a very convenient spot. And so business people got together. There were a couple of land developers who already had put this town into place in the 1850s. And so they decided that they would donate the property where the courthouse could be built. And then there were, I think, 5 or 6 businessmen who said, we'll provide the funds for building the courthouse. Now, that was not this courthouse that we're in right now. Okay. The first courthouse that was here was built in 1860. Then in 1869, that courthouse burned down. And immediately thereafter, the county offices were kind of scattered to buildings around the courthouse square. But in 1870, the county voted to build this building. And so, again, the community just pulled together, and they wanted a place that would really showcase who the people of the area are and attract people to the community, because the assumption was this is going to be a bustling community in the future.
As is true today, and as you talked about the National Road and railroads and why Effingham is here. So what did the impact of this Effingham County Courthouse, this building, what did it have on the impact of Effingham in the early years?
I think it was the center of pride for the county. And so, one of the things that's very important for people is psychologically to have something that they can identify with. A sense of place is what sociologists or psychologists would say. And so that sense of place that we have here is focused upon a building that has been here since 1870, 72 it opened officially, but 1870 we started building this courthouse. And so when that happened, then people began to look from all throughout the county as this being the building that everyone could identify with. And that's still true today.
Talking about a structure that's over 140 years old, if my math is correct. How has it held up through the years?
Quite well. One of the things that when the Illinois Historical Preservation Society came down to visit us, right after we had gotten the right to convert this into a museum, was that they were astonished. They told me at, for instance, the windows that are here. They said most of the time people will remove those. Back in the 70s and 80s, it would have been very easily for them to have done that. That was kind of the fad of the time period for older buildings like this. But the building is very sound structurally. When we have people who know architecture have come and visited with us, they have said this is a really strong building and it should last for a long time in the future.
All right, what improvements can you talk about that have been done to the facility in recent years?
Well, let me talk about something that happened back in the 1960s.
Sounds good.
And that was that there was a renovation project that took place inside the building, trying to kind of upgrade it, I guess, or turn it into the late 60s, early 70s look. Okay. Now, to the people who were doing that, I suppose it was very significant, and they thought that it would really help the building to come up to speed for the time period. We had a lady who worked here, however, she lives in Springfield now, but she asked me one Sunday morning after church, can I go up and visit the courthouse right now? She said, I worked there before they turned it into that ugly room upstairs. And so I took her up to the courtroom, and she said, this was such a beautiful place, all these beautiful curves and railings, and everything was so cheerful in here. And then they put up 1970s or late 60s, early 70s, brown paneling that darkened the room, and they squared everything off, and they made it, this is in the 60s, they squared everything off, they took out all the curves, they made it look like 1970s vintage kind of thing. And so when we moved into the building, one of the things that had happened was because it had been empty for 2 years when we got to talking about converting it into a museum. The building was kind of dingy inside. It had not been used, and buildings inside will, if there's not life there, they will respond to that, and they will get kind of dingy looking. So we began to make a transformation when we got an agreement with the county in 2010, where we could use the building. And so we put 30 gallons of paint here on this first floor, making everything a lot brighter than what it had been for a long time. We then began to transform the rooms into places that we thought would attract people with the furnishings that we put into the building, with furniture, with all of these donations that you see throughout the building. People have had all of these things in their homes and attics and basements and the like. And so that's been the great transformation. We are in the process right now of converting the second story, which was the original courtroom, into the beautiful room that it once was. And I tell you, when that is finished, it will, I think, astonish everybody how pretty it is. I graduated Mason Illinois University, incidentally, in 1965 with a teaching degree, and then in 1966 I finished up my master's degree in history. And so I've always had this love of history. I have found several other people in Effingham County, and especially here in the community, that share that very great interest with me. And so we had talked for several years prior to the opportunity of using this building about the need to have a place where we could tell Effingham's story. And so we began to organize back in the late 1990s. We began to organize ourselves into an organizational structure where we could bring together artifacts. We had one lady, a woman named Kate Borland, who rented a storage building, or a couple of storage buildings, where she collected all this massive amount of material. And we were so grateful to her for doing that. She is now deceased, but she did so much to help us get kind of always the incentive. We have to find some place where we can put all of this, And so we began to really seriously then look at how we could display all of these materials. This seemed like just an open door that was presented to us, and we walked through the open door and said, hey, we're going to turn this into a place that tells Effingham's story. Wonderful, rich history that is here in Effingham County. Unbelievable to me. I wish when I was teaching, I retired from teaching in 2001, but I had wished that when I was teaching, I would have known all the materials about the local history, because it would have really helped me relate national history to local history better.
But I can imagine now that the students and the youth of Effingham and Effingham County, that they probably do come through here, tours and classes, and they're learning about some of that great history that you've talked about.
Absolutely. And this to me is like a big classroom up here, okay? In fact, I had a lady come through 2 weekends ago who said to me, she said, She said, I was there when you started teaching in 1966. And she said, she said, and I didn't care that much about history. And she said, I wish I'd have paid attention. She said, do you think you could start a class here in this building and you could bring all of your old students back in and let them take classes? Interesting idea to me. Okay, I might mention this, that in 2014 we received a call from a lady who identified herself as a person who was working with a White House office. And she said, we have been skimming newspapers. She said, that's part of what we do here, scanning newspapers. And she said, and we found a story about the Effingham County project. And she said, we want to know more about you people. And so she sent me some forms to fill out, and just a couple of months beyond that point, we got a letter, and it said, you have been selected as one of the groups that will be awarded a special prize from the White House. Michelle Obama's signature was on the bottom of the document, and that special prize was the fact that by 2014 we had put 40,000 hours of labor into the building. Now, labor takes a lot of forms in doing this, okay? Some of it is, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done.
Right.
There is the physical labor of painting, of sanding, of tearing out partitions, of redoing, taking out things that weren't there originally. Just a host of things like that. We have a lot of people who have to make plans on how do we set up the exhibits, how do we make things so that they're presentable to the people. We have people who have to serve as the docents to lead people through the building. We have just a host of different kinds of things. So by 2014, we had 40,000 hours that we had put in as a collective body, and we have continued full steam ahead since that time. So I'm not certain. We've not kept an accurate track, right now, but I would guess we probably have close to that amount again.
I guess all those hours paid off. A tremendous honor for you guys.
It was indeed. Mm-hmm.
What is, you want to talk about the mission of the Museum Association. Can you talk about that, please?
Well, when we started, we wanted to do three things. One was that we wanted to preserve the building. This building was in danger of being leveled. There were people inside the county who said, take a bulldozer to it, knock it down, it's old, basically was the attitude, and turn it into a parking lot. So our first concern was, how can we preserve the building? That took us to really formally organize, become a 501c3, a not-for-profit organization. So we did that and got that status really quickly in 2009. And then we began to say, okay, now if we have the right, after we had signed an agreement with the county to lease the building for 25 years, we can preserve the building. What do we need to do next? Well, there was a lot of restoration work. So part of our mission was, let's restore as much as we possibly can. And we began to do that. That will be an ongoing process probably for several years in the future. And then the third thing was to operate as a museum that would showcase the local history, that would be a tourist draw, but also a kind of an adjunct to the local schools. We have a lot of school groups who come through here. And I always try to stress to the kids, there are so many wonderful things that people in little towns do all of the time. There's a wonderful, rich history. And so this has helped, I hope, to set examples for our young people. But also it is a place where generations can come and they can share with each other memories and things of that sort.
Personally, Delaine, what are you most proud of what this museum stands for?
I think the thing that from the very start was our driving purpose was to honor veterans. So we have a lot of military material in here. This is not a military museum, but it has a lot of military material in it. Correct. And so what we have really tried to do is to tell the stories of people who have acts of heroism. And so I am very proud of the fact that we have been able to tell the stories. We also tell the stories of a lot of important personalities from this area that have been hidden. Ada Kepley, for instance, right. The very first woman to receive a law degree anywhere in the world. She was from Effingham, Illinois. We've hidden her. We have other people, a gentleman from Mason, Illinois, which is a little town here in Effingham County, who was the very first student at the University of Illinois, Dr. James Newton Matthews. He was a well-known poet, wrote articles for newspapers all across America. He had a lot of contributions he made to lower grade reading classes with his poetry. And so he was a very important personality, and we have hidden him so well. And there are other people like that. When the hospital fire occurred in Effingham back in 1949, there were some real heroes who were there on the hospital staff, and we tried to tell their story, and the like. Now again, these to me are examples of role models that we can present to our youngsters who have virtues as kind of the driving force behind their life.
Great information on the museum now and the courthouse when it was the courthouse. Want to ask you one last question, Delaine, and just since you're from Effingham, just a general question about Effingham. I've had many city leaders on this program talking about what's going on and the things that they do. And from your opinion, being a native of Effingham, what can you say about the direction of where the town is going, and what are you most proud of it?
Well, I'll tell you this. When I was teaching school, when I started teaching in 1966, and I would go to teachers' conferences, and we would talk about our experiences in our classrooms. My stories were like, I teach in heaven. You know, we had no real issues. There were issues, of course, as there are in any classroom, but we did not have the major issues that I heard so many other teachers talking about. And I know that through the years, I talked with a lot of people who were parents of students in my class who had moved to Effingham County because they said, we wanted to get away from a lot of the difficulties that youngsters are confronted with in a kind of a threatening way in some of our larger areas. And I have seen that kind of an attitude be maintained. This is a community where people really pull together. And we have seen that in a lot of our history, where there's been problems, whether it is in terms of a hospital fire, or whether it is in terms of factories closing, or all those kinds of things, where people really come together and they pull together to get things corrected. I think there is a deep sense of pride that exists here in Effingham County as people look at the ordinary individuals who have really devoted themselves to saying, we want this to be a really nice place to raise families.
I've had a great time here. Glad you let City Spotlight here in the Effingham County Museum. Thank you for your thoughts on the courthouse and museum. Delaine Donaldson of the Effingham County Cultural Center and Museum Association. Thank you for taking the time to be on City Spotlight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
City Spotlight is on YouTube. Past episodes can be viewed on East Central Illinois towns that have been featured on City Spotlight. Just search on YouTube City Spotlight with the show number and the name of the town. Listed on your screen are the recent episodes of City Spotlight. Joining me now is Rich Jorn, Executive Director of the Effingham Performance Center. Rich, thanks for coming on City Spotlight.
My pleasure.
Excellent. And before we talk about the EPC, and we'll reference that as the EPC throughout this segment and what goes on here, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been working here?
Well, I have been here since July of 2010, so this will be 6 years this July. And well, I've kind of worked all over. You in this industry, you work where the job is. Before I was here, I was actually in the touring industry, so I lived on the bus and all that. And so this opportunity came up. I actually grew up in St. Louis, so this is the closest I've lived to home since I left for college. So it was a nice coming back to my Midwestern people.
All right, staying in the Midwest here in
Yes.
Effingham. Very good. And we've talked about the EPC several times on City Spotlight. And for the folks at home that may not be familiar with it, and what's the history, can you tell us a little bit about the history? When did they first open the doors here?
Sure. Back in 2007 was the grand opening here. And it started off as the Rosebud Theater, and it was a for-profit entity. The people that were involved, the investors, they all gave a lot to have the building built, and but they all lost a lot because along the way they did the hardest thing possible, and that is to get a building like this built. There's so many communities out there throughout the U.S. that would love to have a place like this, and they just can't get it done. So they're very fortunate. Unfortunately for their case, they were green or new to the industry, and it kind of has it's harder than it looks. So it stayed open for about 2 years, and then a non-for-profit was formed with a lot of the investors who all lost money because they wanted it for their community. It wasn't just about getting a return on their investment. It was something nice for their community. And the city, and there's kind of a joint nonprofit city effort to reopen, and at that point it became the Effingham Performance Center, and it was after that is when I was hired. I was originally brought in as the general manager.
In your opinion, how has the EPC benefited Effingham and the surrounding communities?
What we hope to do is to increase the quality of life of the citizens here, and that's one of the things that Effingham is truly unique. Our mayor, previous mayor, the city council, they really care about the quality of life. It's not just, hey, I live there and there's nothing to do. This is a community that really, they want to make sure that their citizens have a place to go see quality concerts and performances. They want to see other places in town. They're, quality place to, to work out or enjoy the outdoors or do, nature walks and all that. They're very, very concerned. So I feel like we're a very important part of that. And, and there's a little bit of pride to that when you get to say you got to see your favorite artist in your hometown. You didn't have to drive 100 miles and, pay outrageous amounts for parking and, all that. You just, you went, you saw them, you maybe went to your favorite little drinking hole afterwards and then went right on home. So that's a great thing. So hopefully, and then we do a lot of outreach stuff. We've been a warming center for when it's freezing cold. We do summer camps for the kids. We work close with some other community art groups, the Art Guild, the Three Chicks and a Stage. I mean, we're always just looking to just serve the community.
Okay, very good. And Mayor Blomker, who has talked several occasions about Effingham becoming a entertainment destination, and partly because of what the EPC offers to the community. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and the impact it has had on Effingham, maybe not just monetarily. Sure.
Being an entertainment destination, first and foremost, we're easy to get to. In previous jobs, especially when I was doing, lighting and sound support for various concert venues or festivals, there are a lot of things that are very, very difficult to get to. You end up on some 2-lane road that one lane is being, construction for the next 13 miles or whatever. And with 57 and 70 right here, it's so easy to get to. We have, we have the space, not only what we do here, but, Mid-America Motor Works, what they do out there, all the other entities out here. I hate that there's so much. I'm going to leave somebody out, so I'm going to stop listing them there.
That's right.
But there's just so much to offer here, and when people start thinking about us as a place to go to, and to come in, that really puts us on the map. People come here to visit the cross. They'll come see the cross and then keep going. They don't, they'll have lunch and whatever. But there's just so much to do, and the more that we add to that, the more we'll bring people in.
Several great acts have come through this place, and I saw the pictures of all the past performers that have been here. One of those was the late Merle Haggard.
Yes.
You stop for a second and think about how all these great acts have come through this place in Effingham, Illinois?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our goal. That's our goal. Is we want people, every time we announce a show, we want people like, how did they get them? How did they get them to come to Effingham? And we hear that. And the flip side of that is we want to have that reaction where, how did you get this act or that act to come to Effingham? But we also want to build that relationship of where, hey, I've never heard of this, but they never do bad shows at the EPC, so let's go check it out. Let's broaden our horizons. Let's see something that we may not be familiar with. So that's really the goal, is to serve the community with what they already know, but also introduce them to new stuff that I know they're going to love.
Talk about the staffing it takes on the day of a performance, which will be happening later. We're taping this on May 20th. What kind of staffing does it take on the day of? Tell me a walk through the day of what people might see.
Sure. Well, let's start with our everyday staff. We have a skeleton crew of 5 people that are 5 dedicated people where we all have our certain responsibilities, but we wear many hats, and we pitch in where needed. The day of the show, it starts to create a little army here. And it starts with the needs of the band. Now or play or act, whatever the act is. Some of those needs can be just no big deal. Some of them are huge. The band may require that you have up to 20, 24 people to unload the truck and put up the scenery and do the lights and the sound and all that. So there's people right there. Then you'll have to have security throughout the day, because sometimes with big names, there's super fans who will come and stalk and hang out. So we have to have security out there to, because people are trying to do a job, so move along and all that. So we got to make sure everything's secure. So you'll have that throughout the day. We have the box office, which is right to our right now, answering phone calls. People like they'll wait to the last minute to buy their tickets, or hey, they'll tell a friend, they'll say, hey, okay, let's are there any more tickets? So there's that last minute rush for tickets. So we have that well staffed. And then as we get closer and closer, then we'll start opening up the box office. And then, I'm sorry, not the box office, the concession stands. Mm-hmm. So we'll have all the concessions workers, start doing the pretzels and the popcorn and getting the drinks ready and laying out everything and making sure everything's in its proper place. And we have the last minute cleaning crew going through and making sure everything's just right before the audience gets here. And then just before the audience gets here, then we have the ushers will come in and we'll have a meeting, what we call our pre-show huddle. And there'll be, I don't know, like anywhere from 60 to 80 of us talking about, who's doing what, this is what to expect, this is how long the first act's going to be, is there going to be an intermission, are they selling merchandise, who's taking care of what, who's assigned to this door, that door, what to look for, what the band's rules are. Because a lot of times, the band will have different rules than ours. Like we have, we have a basic house rule when it comes to photography. If you just take your pictures with your phone. If you can't make a phone call from your camera, then don't use it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the bands will say absolutely no pictures or do whatever you want or whatever. So their rules supersede ours. So we keep that in order. So then the ushers get in their place, and then and at the same time people start showing up. We got our parking crew. So we have a certain a lot that's for paid parking. So that's when everyone comes together, and there are a ton of people here, all trying to and no telling on top of that how many people are with the band. There could be 6 members in the band. They each may have a couple guitar techs, drum tech, lighting designer, sound, and then monitor person, engineer. So it just goes and goes and goes and goes from there.
Well, thank you so much for kind of giving us a little painting the picture of how things go the day of. And Rich Jorn, the Executive Director at the Effingham Performance Center, thank you for taking the time to be on City Spotlight.
It's my pleasure. Come back anytime.
City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com.